Greetings, podcast listeners and viewers. We are thrilled today to be joined by Jerry Almendarez, who is the Superintendent of Santa Ana Unified School District in Santa Ana, California. Superintendent Almendarez, welcome.
Hey everyone, this is Adam. Can you tell us a little bit about the school system?
We are a large urban district in Orange County, surrounded by higher level income. We were one of the hardest hit when it came to COVID. We were shut down for 2 years. We have approximately 53 schools, 39,000 students, 6,000 employees, and a high blue collar community with multifamily dwellings. Earlier you asked about the urgency and what got us interested in AI. Historically, Santa Ana has been below average when it comes to performing academically for decades. And we're embracing this innovative state and this technology to really change the narrative when it comes to low academic performance. And so we're of the mindset that if we can learn this technology early, learn how it can be used to enhance instruction, teaching, and learning, then maybe we can give our kids a chance to thrive and be competitive globally.
You've been an early adopter and an advocate for generative AI in education. So what inspired you to start integrating generative AI into the Santa Ana Unified School District?
I think the motivation for me to engage with AI has been to maintain relevancy and to make sure that as we lead our districts and to make sure that as we make decisions for future generations, that we're mindful of the innovative state that we're in and learn as much as we can about the innovation so we can provide our students and our staff opportunities to learn and to provide the necessary support for students in the classroom to be competitive globally.
Is that pretty much how you approach most major initiatives in your district, or does this one have some different characteristics for it?
This definitely has different characteristics. I think this is a moment in time that probably won't come for a while. And the curiosity behind this innovation really is systemically could potentially change public education as we see it. And I think for me, there's a sense of urgency to really learn this innovation, this technology soon in the early stages so we can have a seat at the table to help direct it in a good use and not have something have to happen to us and for public education to react. So we're striving to approach it through the lens of look at us, here's how we're doing. We don't know if it's working, but it's working for us. And the people that we're engaging are excited and motivated. And here's how we're trying things. Some of the things that we're trying isn't working. So we're going to pivot and try other things. But it's just that innovative mindset that we're trying to embrace so we can dictate what happens to us instead of having to be
Love
reactive.
that sense of agency.
That I thought were super interesting. So curiosity, like Julie and I preach that quite a bit when we're out talking to folks, this sense of urgency, which especially at the superintendent cabinet level, right? We're seeing that if you can create that sense of urgency there, it really does has a major impact. And then this idea of scaling it across the system, which is something else we've been
Yeah.
talking about. So those are all really good things.
Not only is that sense of agency, but that sense of personalization, right? This is something, it's a challenge that everybody is navigating right now. And I heard in what you said, this idea of what's going to work for us and for our community. So talk to us a little bit about some of those things that you all have done that are really personal to Santa Ana Unified and how you've chosen to approach the integration of generative AI.
So we started by well, first of all, we started by not banning it. We began to have conversations. It was a soft rollout or a slow rollout. So it started for me learning about the platform OpenAI and its release of ChatGPT on TikTok. And the reason why I was on TikTok is because I lean heavily on what I call reverse mentors, as young researchers across the country that help keep me grounded and keep my eye on the ball when it comes to emerging trends globally. And so they told me that if I'm going to create systems for future generations, then I need to be in the spaces that they're at, TikTok being one of them. So long story short is I was made aware of the release of ChatGPT on TikTok, was curious about it, but didn't really think anything of it until I got home the next day. It was showing up more and more in my feeds. So I went onto YouTube and on the internet and did my own little research and discovered that the the spokespeople for this platform were really high profile executives. And I thought, okay, this is serious and I need to learn more about it. So then I logged on, got an account, started playing with it, and really discovered the power of how its potential. Brought that conversation back to my executive cabinet, brought some articles, brought some YouTube videos, took some time during our executive cabinet meetings for about 4 months to have a conversation and learn more about it. At first, they didn't really think it was that important. They just thought it was a shiny object and this will pass. But the more we started talking about it, the more the more it started to become a little bit mainstream, the more curious they got. They shared it with their executive directors. Their executive directors went through that same process, got excited about it. And the executive directors shared it with our curriculum program specialist, asked them if anybody was interested in learning more. We opened up the platform for those that were interested in it. It was voluntary only, was not mandatory. Once our teacher trainers became aware of it and discovered how it can be used, they got excited and they wanted to put it in the teachers' hands. So when they were doing the staff development for the classroom teachers, they approached it the same way that they were approached. Is anybody interested in using this tool? Here's what it can do as an example to speed up your lesson plan development, write assessments. Some teachers raise their hand and says, I want to know more about this. And then the next thing you know, we had a lot of people using it, a lot of people excited about using it. And that's when our curriculum program specialist came back to us and said, hey, we should probably form an AI advisory committee to work on a policy. And so it was at that point we established the Superintendent's AI Advisory Committee and pulled in 2 consultants, thought partners that we use to help us draft our AI guidance that was approved in April. And once that guidance was approved, that opened up the floodgates to other teachers in the classroom to feel more comfortable using the platforms for a variety of different things. So we're in a pretty good place right now. We're excited. The challenge that we have is some are saying we need to make this mandatory, and others are saying this is wrong. We shouldn't be doing this. The jury's still out on that. At some point, I believe it is going to be mandatory. We just need to go slow in order to go fast until people learn more about it. Those that are afraid of it learn how it can be used for good, and then we can take it from there. But it's a journey. Like I said, we don't know if we're doing the right thing, but we do know it's right for us because we've pulled in a variety of different stakeholders and had collective conversations. I haven't always been on the winning end of those conversations, but I've had to take a step back and let my team move in the direction that they think is best. And so far, we're in a good place.
Great. Can you share a little bit of what was in the guidance document that you all created?
Yes, absolutely. So quite a few things. The unique thing about our guidance, and if anybody's interested, they can just type in sausd.ai guidance, and they will take us to the page that is where they can download the document. But the guidance is reflective of our graduate profile and the 6 characteristics and our board priorities. It's in alignment with those 2 documents. We cover things like AI in education and provide an overview. We have established district-wide expectations of the use of AI in the classroom, integrating AI with integrity and a district-wide approach. We focus on academic integrity with the use of AI. We provide sample classroom policies in navigating AI in the learning journey. We break it down into components of our graduate profile and talk about how the platform can be used to empower students to be architects of their own learning. We inform teachers or recommend to teachers how AI can be used with the curriculum. And we provide initial guidance in key areas and things like the writing detectors, AI applications, AI surveillance systems, personal information transparency, and other areas of concern. So the good thing about the policy that we have here is we wrote into it that we're going to review it every 4 months because the innovation and the technology is rapidly changing. So when I mentioned earlier, sometimes I don't get my way because we are so inclusive in this process. There was a conversation about waiting until we knew more about the innovations that we're rolling out. And one of our team members said, you know what? This is not going to be perfect. We need to get it across the finish line give teachers the guardrails that we have today, give them an opportunity to experiment, and then in 4 months we can come back and revisit this. And I said, okay, I'm good with that. So that's the process that we have. We're proud of it. We all landed there. There was about 40 of us that were part of this 4 month journey to develop it. Teachers, classroom teachers, administrators, classified employees, district employees. And so we're in the rolling out stages right now.
Fantastic. It
That's great.
sounds like a lot of good leadership lessons learned there as well, and change management lessons learned there as well. Talk to us a little bit about the stakeholder voices and how you leverage stakeholder voices and how you leveraged, I know you've done some cool things leveraging AI to engage stakeholder voices. So tell us a little bit about them.
So, well, two things. One, with the adults, we're engaging those that are willing and interested in learning more. We're not saying no to people, but we're saying, tell us how you want to use it. What are your fears? What are your hopes? What platforms are you using and how are you using them? And then we're asking this through the guidance. We're forming a committee to vet any AI platforms that people want to bring forward. And it goes through this committee to vet particular criteria to make sure it meets all the safety requirements. If once it does, then it's given to a small group to go pilot. And then that group's responsibility is to come back and share the outcomes of that small pilot. Unlike Los Angeles Unified, we're not unilaterally rolling this thing out. We're going slow, starting small. That way, if there's bugs in there, it's much more of a controlled issue than a large scale issue. So that's with the adults. With the students, how we've embraced it is through our student listening sessions. And about 4 years ago, we began student listening sessions to really gauge where the students were as we came out of COVID. The initial process, we interviewed over 600 students. We had 60 hours of audio from the questions and the dialogue that the students had. Of that 60 hours of audio, we had a person put on a headset, listen to the audio, transcribe it, plug it into an Excel spreadsheet, print that out, give it to another team in Ed Services where they did a trend analysis and identified any patterns that they could share with our staff development team. That took about a good 6, 7 months. And so we began the year with student listening sessions, and then we had the data towards the end of the year, and we started out the following year with it. Well, at about the same time as the AI has evolved and innovation has evolved, we discovered platforms like PR, which takes the audio that we get from these student listening sessions and it transcribes them automatically through this AI platform. We take the transcribed version of that audio, plug it into ChatGPT, and ask ChatGPT to do the trend analysis. And so what used to take us 6 or 7 months now only takes us a few weeks. And we're able to use that data in that current year to provide updates to our staff development team who share it with teachers that enable the teachers to pivot during the current school year as opposed to having to wait another year. That's the beauty. That was an aha moment for us that we really thought, wow, who would have thought that it could have that much impact on a current school year?
So given that scenario, do you think this will um, transform the way you do strategic planning in the school district?
Absolutely. Absolutely. As a matter of fact, when we were doing the student listening sessions, the teachers came to us and said, hey, what about us? How come nobody's listening to us? So we said, okay. So we started doing adult listening sessions. And the number one issue with the adults is actually, let me back up here. The students felt through the multiple years we did the student listening session that there was a disconnect between the adults and the students. The students didn't feel like there was a connection, a human connection. They felt one student says, you can have the best lesson plan in the world, Mr. Almendarez, but if I know that you don't care about me, I could care less about that lesson. So they were missing that human connection. So we went to the teachers and said, hey, what can we do to support you to enhance the human connection that the students are talking about? They said, free up our time. We don't have time. We want to connect with the kids. We want to get to know them. We just don't have time because we're subbing classes. We have to go to these mandatory meetings. We have all these compliance issues. So then we went to the principals and said, how come you're not giving your teachers more time to do these things? And the principals said, you got to be kidding me. You guys are pulling us off to these mandatory meetings and having us do all these compliance issues. So it just rolled uphill, right? That really Hearing it the third time really made us reflect. But at the same time, we were engaging in this AI platform. And our understanding of it as we were using it is that it actually frees up time. And so the question pivoted for us at the executive cabinet is how can we learn this platform to free up people's time so they can do the more human things? And that's where we're at right now. We're approaching AI in three different quadrants. And those quadrants are operational efficiency, enhanced decision making, and improving teaching and learning experiences. And so we have been navigating for the past 2 years the operational efficiency and enhanced decision making. And now with our AI guidance that the board has approved, now we're starting to emerge into the teaching and learning part of it.
That's an amazing journey. What struck me is that human connectedness as well. And also this idea of going slow to go fast, as you said. And I think the data point is 35% of high school teachers, to your point earlier, still think that this is more damaging than good. So within that context, was in your guidance document, you talked a little bit about academic integrity, but you're probably getting some pushback around cheating, which is there are learners who are being told that they're cheating and they're not, that causes another kind of ethical dilemma and doesn't create that connectedness. What have you all been doing in that vein just to help teachers with that?
So the kids are going to cheat regardless if they have AI or not, right? They're going to take a photo of their test. They're going to send a picture of it to their friends. There are ways around this. What we're telling teachers is yes, there's a possibility that some will use it unethically. But what we're encouraging our staff to do is learn it as much as you can so you can learn ways to engage it in the classroom that overcome the willingness or the desire to cheat. So discover ways that it can be used in a language arts department to correct papers, to identify potential errors, or to give recommendations based on a document that has already been written by the students. And engage the students in those ethical ways as opposed to just assuming that students are going to be using it for the wrong reasons. Granted, they will. And when those issues surface, we will deal with them. But we're giving the benefit of the doubt and we're encouraging our teachers and the adults in the system to learn as much as you can so you can create engaging opportunities in the classroom that are proactive instead of reactive. And I want to share one thing. Microsoft Work Trend Index just came out with a report that says 75% of the adults in the workforce are already using AI. And 46% of those adults just began using it in the last 6 months. And people are using it. They just, they're at all kinds of different levels right now. So what we're trying to do through this AI guidance is give them the guardrails to say, okay, here's the permission, here's some examples. And in the guidance, we do have examples that it can be used, but we're also encouraging the conversation to continue at their grade level or in the content level specific staff meetings.
Yeah. So one thing, yes to all of that, that's amazing. One thing that Julie and I have been doing to also get some common language with this is help schools, districts create that rubric on how do you label an assignment so that kids know across the board, this is how this assignment can be used, how AI can be used in this assignment. And the teacher feels confident that they've at least communicated back to the student, like, this is, you're brainstorming with AI for this. That's perfect. That's what we want you to do. And here's why. And it also allows the teacher to do some thinking out loud with the students around proper use.
Yeah. We've had multiple conversations. At one point, we had our curriculum program specialists say, we need to create prompt libraries by grade level. And then others push back and says, yeah, but if we do that, we're taking away the creativity of the classroom teacher. And now they're not learning the platform. They're just plugging it in and generating potentially similar responses. So we've gone through these very detailed back and forth with our teams and landed in a space where we have developed what we call our curiosity crews. And as a result of the AI guidance, we formed an Innovation Catalyst Collective. And this Innovation Catalyst Collective is made up of a larger group of about 60 early adopters and innovators. Within this Innovative Catalyst Collective, we have what are called curiosity crews. And those are the smaller groups that go out and experiment with the platforms or have conversations and engage grade level teachers and say, here's what can be you can use it for, tell us how you guys are using it and what your
Mhm.
fears are, stuff like that. So we have a whole process design that was a result of the AI guidance that we developed. Now we're rolling out right now. And what I like about this process is we've retained the resources from the Institute for the Future out of Palo Alto, and they're taking us through the Foresight Essential Training, which is a research, a different way of strategic planning that's stretches your thinking and requires you to come up with multiple futures.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, a number of things that you have said recently. I love the idea of sort of small pilots and to learn your way through those. The idea of centering curiosity as a major kind of driver is fantastic. I also hear you talking a lot about literacy as a pathway to implementation. And I'm wondering, it may be too early, but one of the things we're starting to get asked as consultants now is around impact, right? And so I'm wondering, how are you measuring success, and or are there success criteria that you have outlined that will let you know that you're on the right track and those pilots can grow and scale? Um, what kinds of conversations have you had around that?
So we have adopted, or we've actually created a SAUSD metrics. It is not specifically designed for AI to measure the outcomes that of the use of AI. It's designed for the academic outcomes. I'd mentioned earlier that we have traditionally been a lower, but below average performing academically. So what we have done based on our graduate profile and our board priorities was develop a district-wide metrics that we're using to focus on language arts and
Mm,
mathematics. And that is typical nationwide. So if you look at the data that we have been for the past 50 years nationally and in the state of California, not much movement has been made. Um, Not much progress, academic progress nationally. There have been pockets of success, but we've been talking about this for at least 50 years. We've been throwing money, programs, after school tutoring, new curriculum, new assessments. And what do we have to show for it? Pretty much flatlining nationwide in the state of California and in across the country. So our charge is, if what we've been doing in the past isn't working, what are we going to do different? And that's how we're operating right now with that mindset. That's why we brought in the Institute for Future Thinking to help us stretch our thinking to do things differently. And so the metrics that we have is based on our academic performance, our state guidelines. And that's how we're measuring whether what we're doing in our schools, those schools that are using AI and how they're using it, whether we're going to have success. So we're AI is just a tool. It's like a paper and pencil or a laptop. That's how we're approaching it. What really transforms learning is what happens in the classroom from the teacher in the school site. So our charge has been, how are we leading differently as site administrators and district administrators? How are we teaching differently as classroom teachers? And how are we learning differently as students? And we've approached it through those three lenses.
So, given that context, and I agree with you, the standardized way of schooling that we've employed, at least for the last 20 years for sure, right, has not really tipped the scale, or we've gotten to a place where we just level out. So, do you also see this as maybe inflection point where we start to rethink the way we're assessing kids and what we're asking within
Yeah.
that context?
Yes, absolutely. And we've landed on 5 shifts internally in San Ana Unified. And one of those shifts is going from accountability or measurement to future impact. So assessments are not our drivers. They're important. We have to measure them for accountability purposes, but they're not what drives us or motivates us to change the instruction. The future impact. So about the same time OpenAI released ChatGPT, the World Economic Forum released the jobs and the skills of the future. And if you look at those jobs and skills of the future with a critical eye, my reflection of that was, are our students getting these experiences in the classroom that reflect those skills and jobs of the future? And are we allowing them to be competitive by giving them these opportunities? And then I said, are we providing staff development to our teachers to understand what these skills and jobs of the future? And I wasn't confident that I could say yes to any of those questions. So that's where what are we doing differently kicks in. And by providing these innovative catalyst collectives, these curiosity crews, we're giving our teams permission to go out and to look through a different lens and think of things that we normally wouldn't think of. Things like, why does school have to start at 7:30 and end at 2:30? Can we have an AM session and a PM session? Can kids come to school 3 days a week, go out into the field the other 2 days and get some real life or job experience in there, and then come back the other 3 days to a brick and mortar? Uh, Augmented and virtual reality, chronic absenteeism and declining enrollment is a trend nationwide. We've had more money in the past 5 years than we've ever had before, but yet chronic absenteeism is going up and declining enrollment is increasing as well. So where are people going? And so if we're not providing experiences and opportunities for that are engaging and meaningful for our students and for our teachers, they're going to go where they can find it. And so that's our charge in Santa Ana Unified. So we've identified 5 essential shifts to lead in this AI environment, and measurement to future impact is one of them.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, on the assessment front, one of the things the school districts we're working with are thinking through is today a formative assessment is typically given when the teacher thinks the average kids are ready for it. With the tools that we now have and will have in the hands of kids, why wouldn't we just allow them at any point in time to do a formative and that information can flow to the teacher? Because it's pretty easy. I don't know if you've done this before to say, hey, give me a 10-question quiz. I want multiple choice and a couple of fill in the blank and don't tell me the answers till after I
Yeah.
respond, right?
I would much rather know a child is confident in their skill and not a good test
Mhm.
taker.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely. Yeah. Then it gets us to more application of
Yeah.
those skills. Yeah. So I did see in the notes something about Sophia, virtual AIs.
Yes,
Did you want to
Sophia.
talk about that?
Sophia is our attempt to embrace a avatar that has the ability to communicate with our community in multiple languages. And one of the biggest issues that we get, so we talked a lot about the classroom teacher freeing up their time. One of the areas that I talked about earlier was operational efficiency and effectiveness. One of the biggest complaints that we get as a district when people make a phone call to get a problem resolved is they keep getting transferred, or they get to a person that doesn't have the answer and they have to call back at a different time. So one of the areas of low hanging fruit that we're attempting to resolve is being able to meet our community's needs in real time immediately. And that's through the development of Sophia, which is an avatar that has the ability, as we're training it, to be able to answer community members' questions on the web or on a phone in real time, that is based on the data that we upload into it and we train her on. And so we're working with a company right now to help train her. And hopefully our plan is to roll her out within, our target is in the next 6 months, but you know how that goes with this new technology. So we've already changed her voice because the first version of her voice was a little bit robotic. Now it sounds a little bit more human, and we began to train her a little bit, but we have examples of Sophia on my LinkedIn account. So if anybody's interested, they can go to my LinkedIn, or Furman Leal, who's our communications director as well. There's examples of Sophia's training that people can view there as well.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Is that HeyGen? Or is it someone different?
Yes, agent.
Yeah. And as you're looking at that, I know you're in that region. So if you don't want to comment on this, you don't have to. But are there some lessons to be learned from what happened with the rollout in LA Unified
Yeah,
here?
I would say that it's probably better to go small and go slow than it is to unilaterally implement. And I think I've been a superintendent for 16 years, and I've learned my lesson in my previous district where I tried to unilaterally implement. When you do something like that, typically you get 50% willing to embrace and the other 50 resisting. And it is such a new and innovative technology that I think it's going to take some time to educate people on how and why, and then slowly, gradually roll out the avatar to those people that want to use it. Over time, more and more people are going to say, hey, just check the avatar,
Mhm.
just call the avatar. I got an answer, a response right away that helped me register my child. And so we're of the mindset just to go slow and small to go fast.
Yeah, I like also that you said you're working with HeyGen, right? I think also the lesson learned here is you really want to choose these companies that have some history and the ability to implement these generative AI initiatives, and not maybe just someone who's been a partner for you, but now they've decided use some generative AI and now you're in a contract with them, right?
Yeah.
Do you see that as your thought process as well when you were thinking through this?
Yeah. Yeah. We get requests all the time to work together with vendors. And, there's a lot of thank you. We're not interested at this time. A lot of our work is done with relationships. So the vendors that we have relationships and that we trust will recommend other organizations that can meet our needs if they can't. And then a lot of times, because they're learning this technology as we are, a lot of times they'll say, hey, can we pilot something to see how it goes before we bring it to scale for the market? And so we're of those relationships right now, but we're there because we're so early in this innovative state and we've done the work already. We've engaged in a lot of this stuff. So we're working with those partners, not the ones that want to sell us a product really
Yeah.
quick and make a buck.
Speaking of relationships, where can folks go if they're interested in connecting with you about the work that you're doing or curious about the resources some that you've mentioned?
Yeah, I would encourage you to follow us on LinkedIn, myself as well. We're pushing out a lot of the research or a lot of the work that we're doing on our LinkedIn account to share with our colleagues, but also our social media feeds. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. So you can reach out to SAUSD on any of those platforms. I'm also on those platforms as well as my executive cabinet members. And our charge is to share what we're doing. Not that we're doing anything right, but it's good for us. But we're just trying to share our resources and what we've learned as we've been navigating this journey with others in the hopes that somebody can learn something and maybe do a better job than what we've done to this point.
Fantastic.
So I know we're coming up on time here, Joey, but do you have time for two quick questions? Just because I'm super interested in the model and so very impressed.
Sure.
Yeah. As you've worked through this and other superintendents are listening, what are two big challenges that you had to overcome? Maybe you already knew going in, or maybe something that popped up that you were like, oh, didn't see that coming.
I think the advantage that we have is I have an amazing board of education. So it's very safe for me to have these conversations with my community. I know a lot of district leaders are walking that thin line because there's a political challenge and political divide there. But for me, when I tell those administrators, those leaders, focus on the jobs of the future and the skills of the future, make it about industry, revolve the conversation about, are we preparing our kids for this global economy? And what does that look like? What does that look like in the classrooms? What tools are we going to have to provide our teachers and our students to learn in order to be able to successfully navigate that? Because if they're not having that conversation, the speed of how this innovation is taking off, very quickly people are going to be left behind if they're not engaged in this conversation. So that's one issue, is the being able to engage your community in the conversation. The other issue, is it going to take my job? And having to navigate our labor groups. We looped in our labor partners very early in this discussion, actually at the executive cabinet level. So they were learning these platforms as we were learning these platforms. And we reassured them it's not about taking people's jobs. It's about what routine tasks that can be automated and then repurposing these people into other hard to find positions like teachers or instructional assistants. So we looped in our labor groups very early in the stage. And then the third component would be your community, and teaching and educating your community and bring them along with you in this conversation, because as their kids go home and talk about how the teachers are using it, there could be fear among parents and the unknown. And so it's important for that conversation to be parallel with the other two conversations.
Right. Last question. Superintendents out there, right? On the fence because of some of the things you just said and not sure what to do. What would be maybe one or two steps you tell them to do to at least help them get off?
I would say start with YouTube or TikTok. Type in OpenAI, ChatGPT, watch some videos, see the power that is behind its capability, and then reflect on how can this tool help me at my job as a district leader. If it can help make my job as a superintendent more efficient and allow me to get out in the classrooms in real time and do my thing, then by all means, I'm going to start to embrace. I'll give you an example. So we have 53 schools. Each school is responsible in California to develop a school's improvement plan. That improvement plan traditionally would be sent to the district office. Our ed service department would read 53 plans, would outline the priorities, and then make a judgment, a human judgment. Yes, it's aligned. No, it's not. And give it a stamp of approval and then take it to board for board approval. What we've done now is we've uploaded these documents into ChatGPT in seconds, in 2 minutes and 30 seconds. It will read a school site plan, do an analysis, identify if this site plan is aligned with the district priorities. And if it's not, it will give recommendations on how it can be aligned in 2 minutes and 30 seconds. That frees up my team's time to do much more human things. And so those are some examples of how it could help a superintendent look really good and know what they're doing when it comes to providing the oversight for the academic performance. Of that process that I just described, we piloted and sampled 20 of our site SIPSA plans. Out of the 24 came back not aligned. Of the four, 3 came back copied and cut and paste. And we pulled those principals in, had a conversation. It wasn't a punitive conversation because there was very real issues going on at these sites for a lot of different reasons. But we just said, hey, here's what we've noticed. We need to go back and redesign this. Without the AI platforms that may not have ever been caught, we just assisted 4 sites getting back on track in
Yeah.
those communities.
Yeah.
You have an amazing story. We're obviously going to continue to follow what you're doing online. We know how busy you are. And so we appreciate the time you gave us today to share that story for sure.
Absolutely.
Really, any word?
No, just really resonated with the last thing you said, which was really that you're leveraging the technology to be more human and to do what humans do best. So just appreciate that came out so loud and clear across all of your answers today. So thank you.
Thank you for giving me this space to share. Really appreciate it.